Welcome to the Squad Show. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Who do you want, Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins? You only have two options.
I'm Reggie Wilson. That's it. That's it. No, we got to discuss this JJ McCarthy news this week.
Skol! It's the Viking Squad. Everything Minnesota Vikings every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the land of 10,000 lakes. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. It's time to gear up. The Viking Squad Show starts now.
We are so glad you've joined us on the Viking Squad Show today. It's a Thursday. We're streaming on Locked On Vikings, and we're free and available on the Locked On Vikings podcast feed. We are the Vikings offensive line here on the Vikings Squad Show. Luke Inman's got teeth problems from his wisdom teeth. I haven't talked for more than 1 minute straight since Saturday. My voice has been absolutely gone, Reggie. But Reggie Wilson's here. We got people at the combine. We're going to hold it down. We're going to set some picks for each other, play a little two-man game at the top of the key, a little pick and roll, and go back and forth on the J.J. McCarthy commentary coming out of the combine, how it affects our perception of the quarterback position, and Kirk Cousins in play, Aaron Rodgers in play. Maybe we'll talk about some of those big names, as well as a prospect of the day. Alec Lewis held it down last Thursday. I'm going to hold it down today. I've got a prospect of the day. We also preview the defensive line in free agency, and we'll address the tragedy of Rondale Moore passing away at age 25 over the weekend. That's all on today's Viking Squad Show. Reggie, the comments from the combine, KOC and Brzezinski. Hey, it's good to hear what Rob Brzezinski sounds like. Haven't really heard his voice over the last 25 years. Kind of just lurks in the shadows. Hey, he's a real person. We hear stuff I think that we expected to hear from KOC. He expresses that he still believes in J.J. McCarthy as a franchise quarterback, but, quote, the timeline is in a different place for all of us than it was in 2024. No lie there. 2024 is a long time ago. It's 2026 now. And they're talking about raising the baseline of the quarterback room, Reggie. It screams they're bringing in a veteran. They're not bringing in a Sam Howell this year. They're probably not bringing in a Carson Wentz. They're probably bringing, and not to say Carson Wentz isn't a veteran, they're bringing in a legitimate starting caliber quarterback who will either compete at minimum or take this job from J.J. McCarthy. And I will just say this, Reggie. Once you take the keys from a young quarterback, you take the keys away, you say, you crashed the car, you can't have it back, young man. Very rarely does that quarterback then get given the keys back voluntarily, right? Like maybe an injury happens and they find their way back into the spot kind of accidentally. But if he loses his grip on this thing, I have a hard time, even if they believe he's a franchise quarterback, I have a hard time just seeing them suddenly say, all right, 2027 is here. Now you're ready, JJ. No, like if he loses it this year, I have a difficult time seeing him taking it back, barring some kind of injury.
The only recent case study that we've seen where it did kind of work out with a scenario like that is Bryce Young in Carolina. Yep. He lost his job and Andy Dalton played for a few games and then he was back. And I thought Bryce was cooked. Like he just seemed like he had no confidence. Like it just felt like it was over. People ready to call him a bust, all those things. And, he played so well in college. You're just like, what happened there? And now he's starting to look like the guy that can lead the Panthers forward, in the absence of Cam Newton now, the next quarterback of that franchise of the future, led them to the playoffs and play well in the playoffs. They didn't win it, but he looks like he could be the guy. I saw a tweet from Ben Lieber yesterday where he was kind of saying, it sounds like from all the comments that were made at the combine that the Vikings will probably get a veteran to start and then let J.J. McCarthy, in his words, marinate for next season. And I saw Matthew Collar say that he agreed. And here's my thought process with that, though, Sam. Like, I think it's really tough to think about it that way because one, they dug their heels in last offseason, didn't sign Darnold back, didn't sign Aaron Rodgers, didn't bring in a veteran that was really going to threaten the starting position of JJ McCarthy coming off of that injury, losing his whole rookie season. They gave him the keys. You give a young kid the keys and you're like, whoa. I don't think he was ready to drive yet. I don't know about that. Okay, let's bring someone else in. So here's my dilemma here. Say they bring in a veteran and they win 10, 12, 13, 14 games.
Yeah.
Okay, so then now with JJ having sat, and learned behind this veteran quarterback, saw him win a lot of games just like he did when he saw Sam Darnold win a lot of games, albeit he'd be upright this time as opposed to his rookie year. Then do you say, okay, yeah, now he's ready. He's going to lead us to 10, 12 wins in 2027 after seeing, and then who is that veteran? Do you bring them back? Do you say, oh, we saw how this happened with Sam Darnold. Like, we can't afford to let a successful quarterback go in the offseason, whatever his age is. Like, I just don't know in that scenario that it works out to keep JJ McCarthy around and have him still be that long-term starter, because now you're losing years on that rookie deal. And you're going to have to figure out, he gets to year 4, you're going to pick up that 5th-year option. Okay. And then he's going to become expensive if you feel like he's a guy that is worth investing in as the franchise quarterback. And I just don't know how you turn back to a guy in this particular situation where you are trying to win now. You're trying to maximize the prime of Justin Jefferson, maximize this roster with guys who are ready to win now. And then you hand the keys back over to McCarthy the next year and say, oh, he's ready. He's ready. Let's do it.
Yeah, we've got some dueling narratives here. One narrative, he needs time to develop. The other narrative, he needs to play. He's only played 10 games, Reggie, out of a possible 34 in 2 seasons. He's heading into year 3. After year 3, you have to make the decision on the 5th-year option. So are you telling me that if he doesn't play in 2026, that with no new information other than what they see in practice, they would be willing to give him a try in year 4, having played 10 games in 3 years as the starter? I have a hard time believing that. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me. Nope. Try again. Whip. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That would be the case if they decided again, okay, we're going to move on from a veteran quarterback who had some success this past year, and we're going to try it again. We're going to try it again with this first-round pick because we invested capital in this guy. I think that it's possible with some of these quarterbacks that we are going to discuss today, Reggie, that it could be a one and done with an Aaron Rodgers who is he's been on the doorstep of retirement for a bit now. Mm-hmm. Kirk Cousins could see the dollar signs calling. Like, once this is the Kirk Cousins calculation, Reggie. Once the TV contract that he's going to get exceeds the contract he's offered in the NFL, that's when the ultimate businessman makes the move to TV, right? So that could be right around the corner. But JJ McCarthy could be part of a trade package. I mean, that Rob Brzezinski said everything's on the table. We're exploring all possibilities and we're casting a wide net. And if you take that at face value, if you are trading for a quarterback, that is absolutely on the table. I think it has to be on the table if you are trying to get a better quarterback in here and improve that position. I don't think you can scoff if that's part of the offer and if that's the cost of getting a veteran.
So, okay, can we just do a little process journalism here? I think this is all of this is very interesting, Sam. So I'll start here. To your point earlier, Rob Brzezinski says that they need to establish a baseline of quarterback play, which I understand, because when you saw what we saw from JJ McCarthy last year, and then we saw what we saw from Max Brosmer, like, even though JJ wasn't necessarily to the level that they were hoping, the drop off between him and Max Brosmer was pretty steep. And you know, that game in Seattle, whoo, like, you can't fully win football games if you don't have at least a standard of how the QB position is supposed to be played for the Vikings, and a quarterback who can be successful if you put him out there. And so I think that's interesting. With Brzezinski saying that, but also he talked about the injuries, and that's an unfortunate thing, because I think that's the biggest piece here. With the injury, you now have a guy who missed his whole rookie season, probably wouldn't have played that season anyway. Sam was locked in. But then you give him the keys the second season, and the second game of the season, after, you know, this otherworldly fourth quarter performance in Chicago, high ankle sprain, misses 6 games, comes back, up and down play after, you know, gutsy win in Detroit. I said back then he put the Stone Cold Stunner on the Lions. And then, you know, I think rock bottom was what we saw in Green Bay. Concussion, miss another game, come back. You know, he played well in some of those NFC East opponents that they play well. Then the hand, can't finish the last game of the season after missing one on Christmas. Like, the injuries do definitely play a part here, and Brzezinski was not shy in saying that. It's unfortunate for JJ, because I feel like injuries are not something that you can avoid in the game, and also it's a luck of the draw with those things. He was someone who was known to be durable up until he got to the NFL, and this thing has been, I'm sure, it's something that he's really lamenting that he's going through, and it's tough. The best ability is availability, and he hasn't been out there. And so that's a tough situation. And so then now you say, oh, we're casting a wide net. We're exploring all opportunities. And you're like, oh, man. But then a dueling narrative that he said too was like, hey, like, I've been here since 1999. Like, I understand that these Vikings fans are craved. Like, they are starved for a young franchise quarterback that can lead the franchise forward. And he's like, I could tell you that McCarthy is a fabulous person. He cares. He works really hard. He wants to be successful, and he wants to win. He's like, he's going to maximize what's in that body and his potential. But part of it is going to be staying healthy. And that's the narrative there. And then you hear from Kevin O'Connell in a side conversation. It wasn't the official podium conversation, but he's just like, yeah, he's out in California and he's working. He knows this is a big offseason. Like, it comes with the position, but that is so much pressure to put on a young guy. And I think the issue has been tough regardless, because you're in a situation where Kirk Cousins tears his Achilles, and now you're picking 11, which ended up being 10, and you're taking a quarterback. But usually when you take a quarterback in the top 10, you're not a team that's necessarily win now. But they did, and they won 14 games with Sam Darnold. Yeah. And the problem with that is you don't necessarily have the long leash to develop a young quarterback, because the rest of the team is ahead of where the young quarterback is, and you're trying to catch him up. But like, his world is spinning because he's still learning how to play the position at the NFL level. I think he's been behind the 8 ball just to start, and then the injuries just doesn't help with him being out there to actually develop on the field. And so I do not envy him there's been a lot of narrative, even going back to, Super Bowl week, Radio Row, where there were so many conversations happening. And then you got Diana Rossini yesterday talking about how she felt like she understands now how much the Vikings like truly just feel for JJ McCarthy. They still feel very highly about him, which is a different narrative than what she was talking last offseason when she was pushing the Aaron Rodgers thing. And so, but then when you look at that, but then you hear that they're bringing in a veteran quarterback. Like, I don't really know what to think. Like, I think in their heart of hearts, they would like for JJ to, because I think Kevin O'Connell like pretty much brought that up. He's just like, hey, like, he needs to develop to a certain level. And I think bringing in a quarterback to compete with him will escalate his development, which is maybe something that he learned, that was a mistake from last offseason, not necessarily bringing in a guy who was going to push him in that way, because they just gave him the keys and they were just like, oh, we're just going to bring someone in to back him up. Now it's like, hey, if you don't play well, if you don't have a good camp, if you don't have a good preseason, we're bringing in somebody that could take this job from you. You need to take it seriously. It's a lot of pressure, but I guess that's why they pay him the money that they pay him to rise to the occasion.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. We were talking about Kirk Cousins last summer. We were talking about Aaron Rodgers last summer, and they are both back on the table. You know what I'm even going to do for one of our biggest fans, Norse Force, who wants to talk about Derek Carr? Let's talk about Derek Carr as well. Would he come out of retirement? Would he unretire, play for the Minnesota Vikings? That's next on the Squad Show. We're brought to you today by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future. You'll automatically be entered for a shot to attend the NBA Finals. Man, I hope that's at Target Center. How sweet would that be? If you're already looking at the board, thinking about which teams can make a deep run, this is the time to lock in. There's still a chance to get some juicy odds. Let's take a look at the winner on FanDuel, the potential winner of the NBA Finals. I mean, it's the Thunder by a runaway, right? Plus 135. But then the value lies right below that. Nuggets plus 600. Spurs plus 950. Your Timberwolves down at plus 3,300. Bet 100, win over 3,000 on the Wolfies if you made that bet right now. That sounds like value to me. Check it all out at FanDuel, FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future. Get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Squad Show rolls on, and it's part of the #1 sports podcast network. Make sure you check out Luke Braun on Locked On Vikings daily. So Aaron Rodgers is once again waffling. He learned well from Mr. Favre. Kirk Cousins is going to be cut first day of the league year. We'll talk about Derek Carr in a minute, but I just want to have the most polarizing either or for Mr. Reggie Wilson here. You've got your choice of a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers coming off technically a playoff appearance, though some would argue he didn't really appear in that playoff game. It was pretty terrible. Or Kirk Cousins, who took the mantle from an injured Michael Penix, did all right for Atlanta. Actually kind of pulled them into that division chase there toward the end. Take your pick, Rodgers or Cousins.
Give me Kirko all day. All day. One, Aaron Rodgers is older. I think the arm talent is still there. But I also just think that when you have an offense that you want to run, I feel like Aaron Rodgers just takes way too many liberties with the offense and doesn't run the things that maybe are designed, even though he would fight that. And he did last season when that was the narrative. But can you imagine Kevin O'Connell calling up a play that he's really excited about? And then Rodgers getting to the line and it's just like, yeah, we're not doing that. Check. Jets. run that fade, bruh, Devontae Adams style. And, he does the 3-step drop and he's throwing the back shoulder to Justin Jefferson, and Kevin O'Connell's just on the sideline, just like giving that smile that really is just like, I'm going to kill this dude. I'm going to kill him. I know he has great respect and affinity for Aaron Rodgers. And so I think, probably in his mind, if he wanted that to work, he could make it work. But I think too, like, if you put on the tape from last year, like, Rodgers wasn't the most fun to watch. And, say what you want about Arthur Smith's offense or whatever. And now, I guess he'll be Ohio State's problem, if you want to say that, next year. We'll see how that goes with him and Ryan Day. But, like, I think you just look at the film and it just was very clunky last year. And he just didn't look great. And, he did take a lot of hits, especially in that playoff game. Woo, they came after him. And so, you're an older guy taking a beating, a couple of years removed from the Achilles. Like, I think Kirk Cousins makes more sense because he knows the offense. He's played in the offense at a high level for, a season and a half under Kevin O'Connell before his Achilles injury. I will say Kirk he wasn't the most mobile guy when he was here, and it feels like that's taken even more of a dip. But when you talk about playing in the rhythm of the offense, getting the ball out on time, him having that synergy already with guys like Justin Jefferson and maybe TJ Hawkinson and, that elite receiver core, Jordan Addison, I think that's a guy that makes a lot of sense in the world to me. How much he has left, I'm not sure, but he played well coming in for Michael Penix last year. Once he started getting those starter reps in practice, and he was going out there and making plays. And so I think he still has something left. And I would look to him more than Aaron Rodgers just because of the synergy that he has with the coaching staff here in Minnesota already, and just the success. Like, he's comfortable here in Minnesota. He played here for years. And so bringing him back just makes all the sense in the world to me.
The scheme familiarity makes a ton of sense. And I think if you were to choose which of the two quarterbacks do you want nurturing J.J. McCarthy?
Oh, yeah.
You want the work habits of Kirk Cousins to translate apples to apples. Like, if you could clone the work ethic of Kirk Cousins and put it into J.J. McCarthy's brain, and apparently I don't know if we know details. It sounds like this was a little bit of a problem. Like, Kevin O'Connell and, Aggregation Alec talking about the Alec Lewis reporting on this, that they really want J.J. McCarthy to take more seriously the leadership, the work ethic sides of things. So if he could model himself off of Kirk Cousins, that would be great. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has the exquisite reputation as a nurturer of young quarterbacks that Kirk Cousins does. So I get it. I get it. Also, I would tack this onto the conversation. Aaron Rodgers last year, of all qualified quarterbacks, had the lowest depth of target of any of them, last in depth of target. He was super reliant on screens, super reliant on short throws.
Yep.
He only completed 21 deep throws, that's 20 yards or more, last year. So, like, basically one per game. Once in a while, a second one per game. That's not an explosive quarterback.
No, it was not fun to watch.
No, I mean, we watched the Vikings Steelers game. It was not an overwhelming offensive performance by the Steelers. They completed an 80-yard little slant for a touchdown, which was a short throw and a lot of yak. And then Kenneth Gainwell churned them for yards. It was not a big Aaron Rodgers performance by any means. The Vikings almost came back and won that game. Here's the one thing that gets stuck in my head. If you believe that Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers both could, under Kevin O'Connell's guidance, get you to the playoffs, let's say that they're both going to win 10, and they're going to do their thing. Kirk's going to be Kirk, and Rodgers is going to be Rodgers. Who has a better chance to catch fire and win 4 playoff games in a Super Bowl?
Oh,
that to me is still Aaron Rodgers. If he's in the right frame of mind, if he gets hot at the right time, he can do something that he's done before, right? He's won multiple playoff games many times in his career. The Vikings haven't done that as a franchise in 40 years almost. Kirk Cousins only has 1 career playoff win. So that's what it would come down to in some sense for me, that you've got this whole, you like the Kirk process, you like the Kirk personality, and you love the comeback story, the familiarity, all of that. If you're serious about winning a Super Bowl, does Aaron Rodgers give you a slightly better playoff chance?
Actually, I would push back on that. I actually think that Kirk does. I think Kirk gives you a better chance to do that. Like we saw, to end the season last year in Atlanta, he led the Falcons to 4 straight wins, and he played well. That Thursday night game against Tampa, he goes 30 of 44, 373, 3 tutties, no interceptions. He was balling. And I think we've seen stretches of Kirk here in Minnesota that have shown just some mastery. I think if he doesn't tear his Achilles, he's going to go on a roll that season as well, where they start to, it seemed like they were really figuring things out, and Kirk was really in control of the offense, and they were about to go on a run. That's what it felt like. And I think at this point, Kirk's going to be 38 when the season starts, so that's a thing. But I think that Kirk still has some good football left in him, and he can make a sneaky run late in his career.
All right, we'll get to it now, Norris Force. Derek Carr, pondering on retirement, allegedly. He is turning 35 in a month. Last played 2024 for the Saints, went 5-5 in 10 games. Maybe an even better example would be 2 years ago with the Saints when he played the full 17. He went 9-8, 68% passer, 25 tutties, 8 interceptions, a passer rating of 97.7, yards per attempt 7.1. It's a good stat line. The Vikings played them that year in the Josh Dobbs Renaissance game, and I thought Derek Carr was pretty underwhelming, and I don't think people were enamored by his play in New Orleans, but he's still, he's had a very Kirkian career in some sense. He's always hovering in that 7 to 10 win range. Had one exquisite year when he was very young with Oakland, when they were still Oakland. But he's not 38. He's not 42. He's 35. He's practically a young man compared to Kirk and Aaron Rodgers. And the price would probably be pretty reasonable coming out of retirement. Derek Carr, your thoughts?
I'm not with it.
I'm
not with it. I'm good. Carr. I'm good. Here's my thing. He's been out of the game for a year. And also, he had a significant shoulder injury that forced him into retirement. And I know, his brother David is like, oh, yeah, he's healthy. That shoulder's good now. But it's just you take one crazy hit, and now all of a sudden you're on the shelf again. I just don't know how much it would take for him to get up to speed as well, getting back in the saddle as a starting quarterback in the NFL. I would much rather go Geno Smith. I think I've been banging that drum the last 2 pods that I've been on with you guys. I think even though Geno had a poor year in Vegas last year, he was playing. And I think if you put the right talent around him, which the Vikings do have the right talent, I think they want to make sure that offensive line is secure next season. And he had one of the worst offensive lines in all of football that he was playing behind in Vegas. And that probably did just the worst number on his confidence. He's throwing it to the wrong guys. But like Geno, when it comes to superb arm talent, and, you know, if you saw some of his tweets during the Super Bowl, he still has a mastery of NFL offensive concepts. And I think him and Kevin O'Connell having a marriage could lead to success that could net you at least 10 wins next season. And I know it's crazy to say something like that, considering the year that he had last season in I was about to say Oakland, in Vegas. But I think he still has the tools. And, you know, he and Derek Carr, similar age guy, but I give the edge to Geno just because of the injury concern with the shoulder, his throwing shoulder, and the fact that he's been away from the game in a year. We've seen sometimes when guys take a year off or go away, like, it's not easy to just come back and just be successful. And he wants to come back to a team that is ready to win now. And he might be one of the reasons that could be holding the team back, because he's trying to get up to speed. I don't know that that's necessarily a guy that you want to bring in for competition with JJ.
Yeah. If I am just envisioning, okay, Derek Carr, what's the quality of Derek Carr that I've admired the most over the years? It's the effortless arm strength, the deep ball, which he can so easily throw. So you bring him in for a workout, right? If he's noodle armed like Drew Brees at the end of his career, like Peyton Manning at the end of his career, if it's like that movie not Major League. What's the one where the kid has the crazy rocket arm, plays for the Cubs? Kid baseball movie. Help me out here. It's not Little Big League. It's help me out in the comments. Kid gets like a magic arm and he becomes a pitcher, and then he loses the strength at the end, and he's got like a noodle arm left. Someone's got to help me. Someone's got to know the answer to this. If that's Derek Carr at your workout, yeah, you're not signing him. If he exhibits a requisite arm strength, I would contemplate. But I circle back to where we started with Kirk Cousins. He went 17-8 with 25 games with Kevin O'Connell. That is something that is worth pursuing. If his meticulousness and Kevin O'Connell's complexity mesh in such a way that you can win 2 out of 3 games with Kirk Cousins as your QB, it's a playoff team. And oddly, if you have any measure of success with Kirk the second time around, I think fans would really gravitate to it. I think fans, even though they love to hate Kirk the first time around, would strangely kind of love him the second time around because of maybe the way it ended here with him winning as much as he did. Let's get to the defensive line. We devote our prospect of the day and our free agency preview to the D-line today on the Squad Show. And my prospect of the day has a first name that is but one letter of the alphabet. We are brought to you by Indeed. Sponsored jobs, workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up all around you. Your inbox is overflowing. Can't keep that thing at 0. The one position you still have to fill with all this going on, it's still sitting open because you just can't get to it on your to-do list. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, locations. You're not just hoping and wishing that a genie comes around and waves a wand or says a spell and your candidate shows up. No, you got to do the work. You got to do the interviews, and you want to get good interviewees. Here's the stat that you got to bank on. In the 1 minute we've been talking, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It's less stressful. Spend less time, you get better results. Find the right person, cut through the chaos with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves. at Indeed.com/podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Right now, support our show, please. Say you heard about Indeed on this podcast, the Viking Squad Show. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed. Sponsor jobs. So glad you're with us on the Viking Squad Show today. It's Reggie Wilson. It's Sam Ekstrom. We hope to have Luke Inman back. You send Luke Inman a little get well note if you're on social media. He needs your support right now off some wisdom teeth fiascos going on. So bad news. Prospect of the day. I usually tee Luke or Alec up with a little intro that's very low production value. We'll just give myself the go. I wanted to investigate defensive line, particularly edge rusher, Reggie, for today's prospect of the day. Reason being, you feel set right now, right? You've got Van Ginkel for 1 year, Grenard for 2, and Turner for as many as 3 with that 5th-year option. So you feel set right now. But it does not hurt, much like they did with Dallas Turner. It's good to have a pipeline. And it's very possible that 2 years down the road, you're in a world where you don't have Grenard or Van Ginkel. So I would be interested in adding to that pipeline. Maybe not in the first round. Might be a little bit too early of a pick to take someone who's going to sit and develop. But also keep in mind that injuries happen. And number 2, you're playing upwards of 4 edge rushers in a game, right? It does not hurt to have your edge 3 or edge 4 being a really good player because they're going to play. It's not a left tackle, right tackle situation where they don't sit on the bench. So that's a position where I like having a surplus. I am looking in the 2nd round.
Okay.
And initially I was looking at Akeem Mesidor from Miami.
Okay.
And I thought, this might be a first-round guy. He's, right around pick 18. I don't think he's a scheme fit. This is very much a tweener. He's like 280. He's 25. And I don't think you don't take a developmental pipeline guy who's 25. And he's a hand in the ground, 280-pound edge. No, that's not a Flores guy. So I moved on.
Okay.
Now I'm looking in the 2nd round.
Loving this process.
This is you're taking behind the curtain here. The name is R. Mason Thomas. That is capital R space Mason Thomas. He strikes me as, you know how they used Eric Wilson as like an edge a lot last year? He strikes me as you could put him in that Eric Wilson role.
Okay.
Whether you re-sign Eric Wilson or not, I don't know. But he's about 6'2", 250. That is the type of edge that I think Flores likes to work with because of the athleticism, the coverage ability, the versatility. Because Brian Flores is trying to play positionless defense out here. So our Mason Thomas, he is lighter. He is lightweight. But again, so is Andrew Van Ginkel in some ways, right? Like he can, Dallas Turner on the lighter side. He wants fast, twitchy, explosive pass rushers who can drop. He wants guys that when you're showing 7 at the line of scrimmage, he can point to any 3 of them and say, all right, you, and you're dropping in coverage. I think that's our Mason Thomas. He is an upside player. Played 4 years at Oklahoma, had 17 sacks in those 4 years, never played more than 529 snaps, only played over 500 snaps one time. So in a relatively modest workload, he was productive. He is only 21 years of age.
Nice.
So if he's and again, 4 years of college experience, only 21 right now, you're getting someone who is pretty seasoned, but not too old, and would probably benefit from a year or two in a rotational spot. This year, he might profile as your fourth or even fifth edge. I think that's fine. Next year, maybe Van Ginkel's gone. He moves up the ladder. But you watch him on tape. He is undersized. He is Eric Wilson size, maybe a tad taller, but there's a lot of strength there. And it's kind of like when in basketball, if you're a 3 and you get a favorable switch and suddenly a 5 is out guarding you on the perimeter, you're probably going to break him down and cook him to the basket because you're just more athletic. That is like what our Mason Thomas can do against big tackles. He can just duck around them, flexibly kind of slither by and get a sack on the quarterback. That's what I'm looking for from this prospect of the day. Maybe second or third round that he could go in the draft. What do you think?
Hey, you like it. I love it. I haven't gone into the sicko waters like, you and my man Spinman. But if you like it, I love it. I feel like, you can never have too many edge rushers. And if that's someone that you believe in, then I'll believe as well.
I'm glad that you believe in my belief. Thank you, Reggie, for the vote.
I can see the vision.
Free agency. What do you think they need on the front, the edge and the interior? Do you think they will prioritize edge depth or tackle depth? Because it does feel like the players currently under contract could pretty well fill this thing out. Like you've got your top 3 edges. You've got so much depth at defensive tackle. You're talking about trading Javon Hargrave, like Redmond, Taki, Allen, Tyree Ingram-Dawkins, plenty of bodies. So is there one spot where you think, I'd like to fortify that a little bit more?
Yeah, maybe on the edge. I feel like, if you can get someone who can bring some pressure, who is not on the outside, like outside linebacker, like you can have Grenard pin his ears back, you can have Van Ginkel pin his ears back, you can have Dallas Turner pin his ears back, but like if you're getting pressure on the 3, from the 3 down linemen, like I think that could be a game changer for that defense, and I think that's something that they've kind of been missing, just consistently. And I think that's why they got Hargrave. That's why they got Jonathan Allen. Someone sneaky that I would want to bring on, and this could definitely be a flow type of a player, especially even at his advanced age and in this state in his career, future Hall of Famer, by the way, Calais Campbell. If he still wants to lace him up and play, I still think that dude is a nightmare to defend. And so I think he could be someone who could really come in and if you want to put him inside, that's fine. But if you want to slide him over to that role where Jonathan Allen was, like he could also be someone who could wreak some havoc. And now you're not necessarily relying so much on the edge rushers getting home. And also Calais is actually really good in the run as well, against the run as well. And so I think he could be someone, if you decide to move on, we saw Jordan Schultz saying that the Vikings were making Hargrave a trade target. I think that's one of those things where it's just like, oh, let's put it out there, see if someone takes the bait. If not, yeah, we're probably gonna, cut ties, if nobody's gonna take the bait. But if you can, I would say even upgrade with the Calais Campbell, like that could be some dangerous, scary hours for Brian Flores and that defense.
Yeah, Campbell the last 2 years, because, I mean, he's been on, or maybe 3 years even, he's been with some forlorn franchises since he left Baltimore. He had a year in Atlanta. He had a year in Miami. He had a year in Arizona. And I feel like every single year he's been a trade target.
Yep.
And has surprisingly never actually been dealt any of those years. But I like having a couple guys older than me on the team. It makes me feel better. So that's why I'm on the Kirk. I'm on the Calais bandwagon for that reason. But he's turning 40 before the season. That would be, I think, and you play him for 30 snaps a game. I would also toss this one out, Reggie. What about just a beefeater in the middle? Something that they sorely lacked last year, especially without Harrison Phillips. Here's another reunion name, Khyiris Tonga from the Patriots.
Okay.
Tonga, he's a body. He is a lot to handle. He is a perfect rotational fit who is very comfortable playing 20 snaps a game and stuffing the run. And you know him, right? Now I'm trying to double check. Yeah. He was really good in 22. Then Flores came in 23, and then he was, again, pretty effective. And arguably had one of his best year as a run stopper that year with Brian Flores. So Tonga, cheap, big, familiar. You don't have anybody who's like more than 280 pounds.
Even though Jalen Redmond is a force.
Jalen Redmond is a force. I just want someone when it's tush-push time who can offer up a little bit of resistance. So that's a cheap acquisition.
Bro, it's so crazy because Calais is going to be 40 when the season starts. He turns 40 in September.
Yeah.
He's played 17 games the last 3 seasons.
For bad teams, yeah.
That is incredible. Incredible. And he had 6.5 sacks last year for just a lowly Cardinals team. So, like, if he believes that maybe Minnesota is a good quarterback play away from making a run in the playoffs, and he just wants to ride off into the sunset to end his Hall of Fame career, I could see him giving Minnesota a run if he wants to keep going.
Yeah, I wrongly thought that he had a Brian Flores connection. I don't think he does. I don't think that would be new. There was no Miami overlap there. There was no New England overlap. He hasn't played for New England. He's played 13,000 snaps in his career.
Whew.
Some durability for a guy whose build you would not expect to be that durable.
He's huge. He's a monster.
6'8".
He's a monster.
He is a batted pass merchant, is what I would call him. I'll give you one more name. One more name. A little bit of edge fortification. Derek Barnett. He's a decade younger than Calais. He's turning 30. I think he would be a scheme fit. He comes from Houston and before that, Philadelphia. And maybe he's a little too accomplished to want to play in a more rotational, because again, you're looking for edge number 4. You've got Grenard, you've got Van Ginkel, you've got Turner. It might be a hard sell or a path to playing time for someone who had 6 sacks last year, 5 the year before. He's just turning 30. He might want to play somewhere else. But the contract projections I've seen on him are pretty realistic, pretty modest. I would take that one for a spin and have a really good edge group. I think it also, in some ways, comes down to what are you doing with Eric Wilson? Because Eric Wilson turned into your 4th best edge last year. He might have been one of your top 3 edges.
Yeah.
If he's back, he's definitely part of that mix. And we'll get more clarity on that in a couple of weeks.
How about just bringing Harrison Phillips back? Like, I feel like that was a trade that they made last year that really didn't help the situation. I feel like they were better with him, even though maybe they felt like he fell out of rotation like that. I mean, 6'3", 300 plus pounds. Like, he was just like eating like areas of the field. I don't know. Maybe that makes sense. A reunion.
So Phillips is one of the few who remains with the Jets. They've cut a lot of ties, not with Phillips yet, but they've got a free roll at it. He's got no dead money. They could cut him next week. They could cut him in, May. They could cut him in August. They could cut him before cut down day. Like, I think that is very realistic to think that he could be available. Maybe not right away, but if you wanted to hold out and try to find someone on the waiver wire, Harrison Phillips could be your man. He's only 30 as well, and obviously a big time culture guy.
Yep.
When we return, the sobering news from last weekend about Rondale Moore, we'll share our reactions and a couple of KOC's thoughts as well on the other side. We're brought to you today first by Home Chef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner's a big one. You got a busy work day, got a cold winter night. You're making dinner. It's already dark outside. At least it was about a month ago. You got a packed schedule. Maybe you have something coming up that night with a kid or an activity. You want to have an easy, reliable dinner plan. That's where Home Chef comes in handy. They take the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door. Easy to follow recipes that taste great. Rated number 1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. It's easy to see why. There's over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. Sometimes when you got a couple of kids, you got a spouse, you got a lot of different preferences, and Home Chef can cater to all of it. You save time and money. Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. That helps your affordability and the cost of living. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Sign me up, my sweet tooth. Go to homechef.com/lockedon, homechef.com/lockedon for 10% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. All right, putting the wraps on the squad show. It's Reggie Wilson. It's myself, Sam Ekstrom. We had no show earlier this week, so this is our first chance to react to, I beg your pardon, the devastation of the news that came out over the weekend. Rondale Moore, gone at the age of 25, and apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now, I think there's definitely a jump that's being made that's comparing or connecting his lot in life when it comes to the NFL and saying that, well, he had these injuries, his career had not gone the way that he expected, and that is why this occurred. We don't know that. I think that's a dangerous leap to make, to say that we knew everything that was happening in Rondale Moore's personal life. Yes, from a football perspective, he had a really tough go, and he was probably going to get a chance here. He got hurt right away, first play, first return, first preseason game. It's extremely sad from a football standpoint. Whether it has a connection to this, the most extreme of actions that he took to end his life, apparently, I don't think we can say that with certainty. I just think that it's so important to recognize that the struggle is not always worn on people's sleeves. We don't know what they're going through internally. You've heard so many stories, like players coming out and saying they talked with him days before, they texted with him like the day before and had no idea. Right. So the breadcrumbs are not always laid out in perfect fashion. You can't always figure these things out and try to attribute the reason they happen. It's tragic. Try to check in on your people. And even then, it's very hard to identify what's going on in somebody's heart and mind.
So this just hurts my heart, man. Like,
Yeah.
25 is so young. So young. I unfortunately got a tip on Saturday before it all just kind of came out that this had happened. Got a tip that he was taken to the hospital with a gunshot wound and pronounced dead. This was maybe like a couple hours before it blew up everywhere. And at the time, I thought maybe it was, some sort of situation where he was murdered, and it sad no matter what.
Yes.
But he was back in his hometown in New Albany, near the Louisville area. And as some of the details came out after it was announced, that's when we found out just the extreme tragedy. And it just gives you perspective. I think about where I was when I was 25, and you are never a finished product at 25. I'm sitting here now, 35, and I'm not even close to being a finished product. And, you see things like, oh, check on your people, hug your people, give people their flowers. I'm big on giving people their flowers while they can smell them, because you just never know what someone is going through and what could be really just heavy on them. And I've had some dark times in my life. I've had some times where, I felt deep in despair, and I've relied on my faith and my community, whether it was family, friends, and therapy. Go to therapy, talk to someone. That is healthy. There, especially growing up in the Black community, there's been a stigma about, therapy and it not being, something that, you're weak if you decide that you want to go to therapy. No, you're smart. You're taking care of your mental health. And what hurts me is that there were people who were talking to him that morning. Kyle Pitts, Hollywood Brown, and they're tweeting their feelings. There are people hurt behind this. And I don't know what Rondale was going through. You saw a guy who was the man at Purdue. 5'7", he could squat like 600 pounds, fastest dude on the field. He had that game against Ohio State where he just made everybody look silly. Big time upset over the Buckeyes when he was in college. And then you look at his career, and the last 3 seasons of his career, injury cut short in Arizona. He was brought in to be a weapon for Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. Knee injury ends his season before it really even gets started. Same thing in Minnesota, trying to catch on. Punt return. Ended his season. And he's rehabbing the injury yet again. And he's not reaching the height of what he believes himself to be. And I don't know how that relates to what he was going through, but obviously he had some things that were heavy on him and led him to what happened. And honestly, Sam, I just can't say enough about how sad this whole situation is. Not even just talking about the football player, just talking about the man and someone who's now ripped from people who love him tremendously, as we've seen from the outpouring of love and support in favor of him since he passed untimely. And it just hurts my heart, man.
Yeah. I'll give some props to, our good friend Ron Johnson, who's been a big part of our network here and interviewed a ton of former players on this channel the last 4 years. And huge advocate is Ron for having a plan after football, having an identity outside of
it's
football.
So important. Yes.
Yeah. Because that is who you are for the however long you're fortunate enough to play. 4 years college. Most guys get a couple of years in the NFL. That's the average, right? 2-3 years. If you're lucky, you get 5 to 10. Even if it's 10. When you get to age 30, you need something else, right? And having an identity, having a foundation outside of your success as a football player is so vital. From the Vikings organizational standpoint, they've had a lot to bear. And you go back to predating you, Reggie, but losing Tony Sperano, the offensive line coach, before the season, that was 2018. And then of course, Jeff Gladney, who'd been in the organization just prior, gone way too young. Kyrie Jackson last year, before he even got to be a Viking, and now Rondale Moore. So that's heavy. That's a lot. And I think the older you get, the more you understand how mortal we are. It's heavy stuff. And we appreciate your perspective on it, Reggie. And that's our show for today here in the Viking Squad Show. Thanks a lot for everyone watching, listening, and we'll be back next week with plenty more on the Minnesota Vikings. Off season, we will be in the month of March, and moves are going to start getting made. Thank you for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time.